conservative new media viewers and NBA fans around the world. What is up? It is me, PFE, Paul F. Villarreal, the NBA expert, and we're here to discuss the matter of Tim Duncan versus Kobe Bryant. Now, I said in the Game 5 of the 2014 NBA Finals video that I would be making a video to discuss this topic, and this is that video. There are still plenty of other videos we have to make after the Spurs defeated the Miami Heat in 2014 NBA Finals concerning legacies. Where is Tim Duncan now? How do LeBron versus Kobe, how does that look? Etc. This is the first of those follow-up videos, and I will be working to get more of them done as the days go on here in the aftermath of the finals, Game 5. First, I just want to say I wanted to thank Jalen Fan from Australia over at jeremylin.net, because I know you've been putting up some of these videos recently, and I just wanted to say I really appreciate that, so thanks very much. Okay, let's get right into this. There's a lot to say about this, so I'm just going to go through it point by point. And the first topic that you will see here in front of you right now is a measurement that I often use to discuss the greatness of players compared with one another. I've talked about this a lot over at Real GM, where I post a lot in the NBA forums, particularly the general board, and it is the measurement of rings plus finals MVPs plus MVPs. So how many titles did the player win? How many finals MVPs did they collect? And how many regular season MVPs did they get? As you can see here in front of you, Tim Duncan, 5 rings, 3 finals MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs for a total of 10. Kobe Bryant, 5 rings, 2 finals MVPs, and 1 regular season MVP for a total of 8. So Tim Duncan has 1 more finals MVP award and 1 more regular season award, MVP award, over Kobe Bryant. This is probably, to me, the most compelling argument, although there are other arguments. Duncan was a central figure in all 5 San Antonio championships, including this one, the 2014 championship, which I'll talk about more in a little bit. He was the man. He certainly was the man on 4 of the titles, including in 2007 when Tony Parker won the Finals MVP trophy. Duncan was definitely the better player that season and in that playoff run, even though Parker may have been better in the finals itself. So that, of course, isn't the case necessarily as concerns Kobe, particularly when Kobe played with Shaq. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now, moving on. There are a lot of people who want to say that Tim Duncan was a role player for this San Antonio team, so that they're kind of trying to minimize what Duncan did for this championship run. First of all, Tim Duncan averaged a double-double in the finals. He was the only player on the Spurs to average a double-double. I would also say that at worst, Tim Duncan was the second best player on the Spurs in the NBA Finals, with the possible exception of Kawhi Leonard being the best. And a fair case can be made for that. Kawhi was fantastic in the last 3 games of the series. Kawhi didn't really show up in the first 2 games of the series, but he was more spectacular than Duncan was for the final 3 games. So I don't really have a problem with that. Kawhi played great. I do think there was a case for Duncan to be Finals MVP, but it's not a real problem for Kawhi Leonard winning it, in my opinion. But Duncan was the second best player on the team in the Finals behind Kawhi Leonard, I believe. Now, for the playoff run for the Spurs, Tim Duncan had the best PER, the efficiency measurement. He had the best PER on the entire team for the San Antonio Spurs in the 2014 playoffs. He played the most minutes per game of any Spurs player in the 2014 playoffs. He also led the team in rebounds per game in the 2014 NBA playoffs. Additionally, for the 2014 playoffs, he had a top 10 PER of the entire NBA group of players who played in the playoffs. Those that qualified, you won't qualify if you're playing like 5 minutes a game for a team. You need to play significantly more than that. And he was top 10 in win shares per 48 minutes, which is another kind of total stat measurement. He was the only player on the Spurs to be top 10 in both of those categories for the 2014 NBA playoffs. That's incredible. And it's definitely not representative of a role player. If you watched Game 5, Tim Duncan on defense shut down the lane against Miami. He made it almost impossible for the Heat to get inside and get layups and dunks. And so he's still getting a tremendous amount done. Additionally, Duncan had the best PER for the team for the 2013-2014 regular season. So he's never went anywhere. He might not be quite what he used to be, but he's still getting a tremendous amount done, a lot done. So the concept that he was a role player just doesn't seem to hold up. However, if you somehow believe that Tim Duncan was a role player in the finals or in the playoffs or for this season, the counter argument to that as regards Kobe would be the 1999-2000 season. That is the first year of the Lakers three-peat. In that year, Kobe had a lower PER in the regular season as well as the playoffs, I believe, as compared with Tim Duncan. I also believe that Kobe's finals statistics were lesser than Tim Duncan's. And in fact, I'm virtually sure of that. I know there's a measurement called game score, which is somewhat similar to PER. And I know that Tim Duncan's game score per game in the 2014 finals was better than Kobe Bryant's game score in the 2000 finals. So that Kobe really didn't reach the Kobe level that we were used to until the 2001 playoffs and the 2000 and 2001 season. He wasn't bad, but Shaq was clearly the dominating force of that team, and Kobe was much more behind Shaq as a player at that time. So if you want to say that Duncan was a bit player in 2014 playoffs, then the argument can be made that Kobe Bryant was more of a bit player in the 2000 playoffs. Another achievement for Tim Duncan was he became the first player to start on a title-winning team in 3 different decades. That's pretty remarkable, and that helps to kind of go to the sustained excellence of Tim Duncan. Another metric that helps to point this out, and I've written about this before on Real GM, is that Tim Duncan is tied with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the only players in NBA history to have 17 regular seasons where they had a PER of 20 or above. What that means is, and Tim Duncan's only played 17 seasons. So that means every single year he's been in the NBA, he's had a PER of 20 or above. And what that means is Tim Duncan came into the NBA as a dominating force. And he's still a dominating force even after all this time. To compare that with Kobe, who has played one more season than Tim Duncan has played, 18 for Kobe as compared with 17 for Tim Duncan. Kobe has 14 seasons where he's had a PER of 20 or above. And 3 of those years for Kobe where he did not have a PER of 20 or above were his first 3 years in the league. And what that means is Kobe wasn't as good as Duncan was when he came into the league, which makes sense. Kobe was younger. Kobe didn't go to college before he came into the league. He just went straight to the league. And that's good. But Duncan, after going to college, came into the NBA ready to dominate from the beginning. And that's what he did. And he's been able to maintain that level or close to it all throughout his career. For Kareem, the first 17 years of his career, he had a 20-plus PER. So in his 18th year, Kareem dropped off. We will see if Tim Duncan drops off next year, if he continues to play. And my feeling is that he's going to continue to play. If you're Tim Duncan, why would you retire? Your team is, at worst, the 3rd or 4th favorite to win the title next year. I really doubt Tim Duncan's going to retire when he's got a chance to win another championship. Okay, moving on. Comparing the Duncan versus Kobe, their career playoff PERs, and I just want to say all of these statistics are from basketballreference.com, which is a great site. Every single statistic I'm giving you here is from that site. I probably won't put them all in the video description, but they can easily be checked there. And if anybody needs anything specific, just ask me in the comments and I can point you in the right direction. Duncan's career playoff PER is greater than Kobe's career playoff PER. What does that mean? That means throughout both of their careers, Duncan has been the better playoff performer. Also, Duncan's career regular season PER has been greater than Kobe's career regular season PER. So Duncan has been a consistently better performer during the regular season throughout his entire career as compared with Kobe Bryant. So playoffs and regular season, Duncan is tops in PER. Tim Duncan has the 2nd best defensive rating in NBA history for a career. And this is based upon the Basketball Reference defensive rating, which is not the same thing as the defensive rating you will find on a site like NBA.com. Here's the difference. This is important to understand. Basketball Reference's defensive rating is about the individual player. How does an individual player perform on defense? Whereas the NBA.com defensive rating means how does the team perform on defense when the player is on the court? So this is a more individual metric. And for that individual metric, Tim Duncan has the 2nd best rating for a career in NBA history. That's incredible. That's remarkable. Duncan is just, it goes without saying almost, he is one of the greatest defensive forces in the history of the league. Now, Kobe's an excellent defender. He was a great defender in his prime. The difference is Duncan can shut down the entire paint. He can shut down layups and dunks from everybody. Kobe is only going to stop his man in particular. Duncan can have a greater effect on the defense because he's protecting the rim. and he still does that extremely well, even at this age. But throughout his career, he's done it almost better than anybody in NBA history. So that's remarkable. Now, going to another all-purpose metric. Duncan's career win shares per 48 is greater than Kobe's career win shares per 48 in the regular season. Again, a difference between PER and win shares per 48 is that win shares per 48 includes more defensive calculations than PER does. PER is more of an offensive metric. So, in both the offensive and defensive metrics, Tim Duncan has a career edge on Kobe. And that carries over in both regular season and in the playoffs, because Tim Duncan's career win shares per 48 is also greater than Kobe's career win shares per 48 in the playoffs. Moving on, Duncan has won 50 games every single year of his career except 1 year where there was a lockout. There were actually 2 years that Duncan has played that there was a lockout, I believe. But in one of those years, even though the season was shorter, he still won 50 games. So anytime there was a regular season that wasn't interrupted by a work stoppage, Tim Duncan's team has won 50 games. That is definitely not the case for Kobe Bryant. And it just shows you how important and how great Duncan has been and the kind of effect that he has had on the teams that he has played on. Tim Duncan has made the playoffs every year of his career. So the team that he has played on has made the postseason every single year of his career. That's remarkable. Very remarkable. Kobe's teams, Kobe has played 18 years, and his teams that he has played on has missed the playoffs 2 times. That happened this past season, and I believe it happened in the 2006-2007 season, or maybe it was 2005-2006, actually. Excuse me. So, if you want to win 50 games, Tim Duncan's going to get it done. You want to make the playoffs every single year, Tim Duncan's going to get it done. You want high PER, Tim Duncan's going to get it done. You want a higher win shares per 48, Tim Duncan's your man. You want whatever you want, essentially, Tim Duncan is going to be the guy that you would choose over Kobe Bryant. Now, let's go over the arguments, or some of them, for Kobe being better than Duncan. Number 1, Kobe Bryant has scored more points than Tim Duncan. This is, of course, it's true. Tim Duncan scored about 25,000 points in his regular season career, and Kobe Bryant has scored, about 32,000 or more? That's important. But then again, if you were to compare their rebounding statistics, Tim Duncan would have significantly more rebounds than Kobe Bryant does. This is why we use metrics like PER, because it calculates those things and tries to put them all together so you can compare one player to the next player. So even though Kobe has more points in his career than Tim Duncan does, Tim Duncan has the superior PER, meaning kind of the superior offensive performance, including rebounding. Another counter argument from Kobe fans. Kobe Bryant is more popular than Tim Duncan. Kobe Bryant is the face of the NBA. Tim Duncan's boring. All of this. That's true. He is more popular, and Tim Duncan probably is more boring. But we're talking about performance as compared with popularity. The Spurs are never going to be the most popular team, even though they are very popular internationally because they have so many international players. But what this video is concerned with is who is the better player, not who is the more popular player. So I just that's important to understand for where we're being concerned from. Also, the Lakers have a larger fan base than the Spurs. So any Lakers player is almost always going to be any more popular than any Spurs player. Kobe went to one more finals than did Tim Duncan. Kobe has been to 7 finals. Tim Duncan has been to 6 finals. That's true, and that's a good accomplishment. On the other hand, they've both won 5 championships. So the time that Kobe went, the extra time, he didn't win. So the counter argument then becomes it took Kobe another trip to win the same number of titles that Tim Duncan has. And the 2 times that the Lakers lost when Kobe went to the finals, 2008 against the Celtics, 2004 against the Pistons. In 2004, the Lakers were backdoor swept. They won the first game, and then they got beaten 4 straight times. In 2008, I believe it was 4-2 for the Celtics, and in game number 6, I think it was, the Lakers lost by like 35 points. So even though the Lakers went to two finals in which Kobe didn't win, they didn't perform that well in them. And if you compare that with Tim Duncan last year, literally the Spurs were 1 made free throw away in Game 6 from winning the title. So it is a good argument. You do want to respect people and reward people who make the finals. That's an accomplishment. But I don't think it hurts Duncan much in this discussion because they both won 5 championships. It's kind of like talking about Joe Montana versus another quarterback like Tom Brady, if Tom Brady won another title. Well, okay, Tom Brady's been to more championships then, but he hadn't won more. So Joe Montana's 4-0. So does that mean Tom Brady's better than Joe Montana? I don't know. It depends. Another argument is that I believe that Kobe's Lakers are 4-3 against Tim Duncan's Spurs in the playoffs during the time that they have both been on their teams. That's another good argument. That's another good statistic. However, early in Kobe's career, he's playing with Shaq. And so you had 2 incredibly dominant forces in Kobe and Shaq, whereas Duncan never played with a player at that level. When Duncan got to play with David Robinson was already diminished. I think he had already had back surgery. He was never the same player after that. Also, it's not a head-to-head sport. If you think about tennis, if you know much about tennis, Rafael Nadal has a better head-to-head record against Roger Federer. However, Roger Federer's won more titles. So beating a rival in the head-to-head series doesn't mean that you win a championship. Doesn't mean that you're the better team or the best team of that year, unless your rival is in the opposite conference, in the Eastern Conference, and you're in the West, and you meet in the finals. So sometimes you're going to be on a weaker team, your rival's going to be on a stronger team, and you lose. So that's how I would argue against that comparison. The final counter argument that I have seen is that Kobe won 5 titles in 11 years, whereas it took Duncan 16 years to win his 5 titles. Also, Kobe has a 3-peat and a back-to-back championship. He's defended his championship, and he has the 3-peat as well. Well, that can be argued the other way, which is to say Duncan was more dominant for longer. In other words, he was able to compete for championships for 16 or 17 years, and Kobe was not. Also, if you want to take the entire career, you can say that Kobe won 5 titles now in 18 years, whereas Duncan has won 5 in only 17 years. For the 3-peat and the back-to-back, it's a similar discussion. It's good to be able to defend your title. There's no question about it. It's also good to be able to compete for a title consistently. And the Lakers have not really been a title contender since probably 2011. And they obviously weren't a title contender in 2004, 2005, 2006, etc. So that becomes then a kind of, what do you like better? Do you like the short bunch of titles, or do you like a guy and a team that's been competitive for the championship year after year, basically? Now, moving on, Bill Simmons of ESPN and Grantland and ABC's NBA coverage wrote an article before the 2013 NBA Finals, when it was the first matchup between Miami and the Spurs, saying that he believed that Tim Duncan was the best player of his generation. And I think that was even, again, before the end of last year's finals. And that's when Tim Duncan only had 4 titles. So this was already being discussed before Tim even won his 5th title, before Tim had even competed in his 5th finals. And I think that with Tim winning the 5th ring, it's pretty much a closed case now. I think there's not going to be very many convincing arguments that Kobe is better than Tim Duncan. Now, I know that there was, I guess, yesterday, Tuesday, the 17th of June, 2014, I believe there was a ESPN First Take segment about these about this matter, about Duncan versus Kobe. I just want to say I didn't watch it. I don't really watch that program very much. I didn't get any ideas from there, but it is something that is being discussed. It is something that is going to come up now, which is one of the reasons why I'm making this video. It's a real topic now, if it wasn't already before. Now, going to the topic of Shaq and Kobe versus Duncan. I said earlier in this video that Duncan was the best player on at least 4 of the Spurs title teams. As most of you know, Kobe was only the best player on 2 of the Lakers title teams, because in 2000, 2001, 2002, Shaq was the better player. And that includes in 2001, when Kobe had a phenomenal playoff run. Shaq still had a better playoff PER, and Shaq, of course, won Finals MVP in that year as well. So Kobe was in a very fortunate position to play with Shaq, because Shaq at that time was one of the most dominant forces in the history of the league. I would say, and I have said, Shaq was one of the 4 most dominant players ever during that period of time, along with Michael Jordan at his peak, LeBron James at his peak, and Wilt Chamberlain at his peak. So I think you could put a number of different wing players on that team, and they still would have three-peated. Also, of course, you had Phil Jackson, who many regard as the greatest coach in the history of the NBA. So Kobe was in a very good situation in that time period. But he was not the best player on the team for 3 of those titles, whereas Tim Duncan was the best player on his team at least 4 of the times in which he won a championship. Duncan also holds several playoff records at this time. He has the most career playoff minutes played, just showing how often he's been in the playoffs. He also holds the record for the most career double-doubles in the playoffs, and he is number 1 for the most blocks in NBA playoff history. I don't think Kobe holds any significant NBA playoff records at this time. He's slightly behind Tim Duncan in terms of career playoff games. Maybe he's like 12 behind Duncan right now. Duncan's number 4 on that list. He's number 3, I think, in career playoff points behind Jordan and I think Kareem. And in terms of minutes, I know he's behind. Obviously, he's behind Duncan because Duncan's now the leader. So Kobe is close. He's close to a couple of playoff records, but he hasn't achieved them yet. So this is another thing that helps out to put Duncan over the top of Kobe. So Duncan is the most accomplished active NBA player. He has won more awards, and his trophy case is more full than anybody else actively playing in the NBA. That includes Kobe. That includes LeBron. It includes everybody. He is the pinnacle of accomplishment in the current NBA. And that, of course, kind of makes its own argument. Another thing that probably should be mentioned when comparing these two individuals as players and for their careers is that Duncan seems much more selfless than Kobe does in terms of his ego, in terms of accepting less money so that the team could bring in more players to help compete for a championship. We know Kobe's received a lot of criticism for his new extension, which he just signed for 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016, which will make him the highest player in the NBA, even though he's 36 years old going into 2014, 2015, and he's coming off 2 serious leg injuries. Duncan, on the opposite side, has taken pay cuts so that more talent could be added to the Spurs roster, and that's probably partly why the Spurs were able to win this 5th title. So there's nothing wrong with having an ego, but you don't want the ego to get in the way of winning. And, of course, the Kobe and Shaq feud, but there was a lot of ego involved in that on both sides. On both sides, to be fair, but I think Kobe might have had a hand in breaking up the dynasty of the Lakers. And I think Phil Jackson wanted to get away from the Lakers in part because of Kobe Bryant after the 2003-2004 season, if I remember correctly. ESPN, one of their writers, David Thorpe, I believe, said that Tim Duncan was the MVP of the entire 2014 postseason. So that goes back to my earlier comment about Duncan is not a role player. I know he's personally come out and said that he's a role player for this team, but that's not what happens on the court. Based on his performance on the court, he's not a role player for this 2014 championship team. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. Who's the best player since Michael Jordan? And I would say that there are 4 people in that discussion: Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Tim Duncan. Now, we want to talk more about that. That's for another video. But in this video, we took 2 of those people, Kobe Bryant and and Tim Duncan, and we compared both of them. That was the comparison. That was the focus of this video. Now, again, there are more videos that I want to make about legacies after the 2014 finals. LeBron versus Kobe. Where does Duncan stand in terms of the all-time greats? Where's he at on the list? What is the top 10 all-time great list right now after the 2014 NBA playoffs? Who is the best player since Michael Jordan? And where does Tim Duncan rank in terms of big men in the history of the NBA? So those are 5 different videos I still want to make about this subject. But this video, we talked about who is the better player, who has had the better career, Tim Duncan or Kobe Bryant. And based on everything that I've said, career PER, career win shares per 48 minutes, finals MVP totals, regular season MVP totals, Duncan having 17 years of 20-plus PER versus Kobe's 14. Duncan being the best player on at least 4 of the Spurs title team, with Kobe being the best player on only 2. I think when you add everything up, my opinion as an NBA expert is that Duncan is clearly greater than Kobe. And honestly, I don't think Kobe's going to be able to do a lot about it at this point in his career. He's too old to win an MVP. You're not going to win an MVP with the amount of mileage that Kobe Bryant has on him. And what I mean by that is you're not going to win a regular season MVP. Kobe is probably too old to win a finals MVP. But even if he weren't, the Lakers are not contenders. And part of why they're not contenders is because of Kobe's contract. Meaning it's harder to bring in more talent because that contract is taking up a substantial portion of the Lakers' salary cap space. Thus, Kobe probably has 2 to 3 more years left. At best, I would say 3. The Lakers almost certainly aren't going to be serious contenders for the next 2 years during the length of Kobe's current extension. It's going to be difficult for them to do that, in my opinion. That would give Kobe 1 more year to try to get another title, try to get another finals MVP, to get one up on Tim Duncan and retake the lead over him, so to speak. But by that time, Kobe's going to be in his 21st year. It's too old. It's too old. Kobe be 38 years old. You're not going to win a finals MVP at 38 years old with the amount of mileage that Kobe Bryant has on his body, if his body even holds up. So what I'm saying then is probably for now, obviously, but probably forever, Tim Duncan is going to be greater than Kobe Bryant. Because, again, I don't think there's a whole bunch Kobe's going to be able to do about it. In fact, if one of the two is likely to add to their career legacy, it's probably going to be Tim Duncan. Because the Spurs are going to have an excellent chance, in my opinion, to win a 6th title next year. Now, Kobe will pass Michael Jordan in career points next season, in 2014, 2015, as long as he's healthy. He's only about 600 points right now behind Michael, and that should happen. That's a great achievement. However, that achievement probably won't last for very long. With LeBron James and Kevin Durant able to score the way that they're able to score, and with LeBron's excellent health to this point in his career, I don't think that record's going to hold up for very long. Although we'll see. You never know. LeBron could get hurt. Kevin Durant could get hurt. So maybe it holds up longer than we think it will. And that would put Kobe as the 3rd all-time leading scorer in NBA history, behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Karl Malone. So that's a good achievement. He's not number 1 after he passes Jordan, but it's an excellent achievement. Still, I think that if someone's going to add to their legacy next year in a substantial way, it's probably going to be Tim Duncan, going for his 6th championship. Of course, the Spurs will have to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder again next year, who should be better. The Los Angeles Clippers, who should be better. Perhaps the Miami Heat in the finals once again. So it's not a sure bet that Duncan's going to win another ring if he returns and does not retire. But I think he is in better position to further his legacy than Kobe Bryant will be, certainly next year and probably for the rest of both of their careers. Okay, that is it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Your comments below. Who do you think is the better player? Who has had the better career? Who is better, Tim Duncan or Kobe Bryant? We encourage you to come and join the Conservative in the Media Facebook group. You will find information for that group in the video description below the video player. We have over 3,000 members there and growing all the time. We'd love to have you come and join that discussion. This is a fascinating topic. There will never be consensus. Well, maybe a consensus. There will never be a unanimous opinion on this topic, if for no other reason than there are a lot of Lakers fans in the world, and there are a lot of Kobe's fans in the world. But I think that Tim Duncan has pretty much closed the book on who is the best player of his generation and Kobe's generation. And so, as you can see on your screen in front of you, my final declaration at this point in time, and I doubt it's going to be changed, is Tim Duncan greater than Kobe Bryant for their careers. With the 5th championship ring and playing a significant role in that, I think Tim Duncan has forever cemented his place above Kobe Bryant in the all-time great list of NBA players. Once again, I am Paul F. Villarreal, PFV, the NBA expert. Thanks a lot for watching Conservative New Media. We will talk to you again soon as we continue to go through these different legacy videos in the aftermath of the 2014 finals. I don't know which one's coming up next, although maybe LeBron versus Kobe. I'm not sure. So stay tuned. We will get to all of those other 5 videos as soon as we can. Until then, take care. Hope you're having a great day or great night wherever you are around the world when you watch this video. Talk to you again soon.